Before I invite our patron, Vice Admiral A.R. Karve, to deliver the valedictory address, the onus is on me to provide a summation of the conclave so far. Let me begin. Maritime History Society first organized the first of its National Maritime Heritage Conclave and set rolling with the words of Vice Admiral R.B. Pandit, Chief of Staff, Western Naval Command and Chairman of Maritime History Society. In his inaugural address, he pointed out that the maritime history of India deserves the attention of both young and veteran scholars. He bemoaned the fact that as a nation, we have failed to record the knowledge and traditions of the local communities who call the coast their home. Going deeper into the theme of the conclave, he highlighted that the maritime medium remains a mystery due to our ignorance, which can be overcome by digging deeper and exploring topics such as the unsung frames of the coastal communities and the contribution of women in the Indian maritime history. He also reiterated the need to address a gap in our maritime history and heritage, for which the eminent and young scholars must come together and be involved in a copious discourse. With reference to the coastal communities, he observed that the sea-facing communities in our country have proven to be extremely helpful as they offer aid and assistance to the Indian Navy in times of disasters and catastrophes. The objectives of the conclave were to stimulate discussions on the underexplored dimensions of Indian maritime history, especially coastal communities and the role of women in the Indian maritime past and present. It is hoped that thoughts from the various sessions would become starting points for further research in maritime history, with coastal communities and women as foci, which would in turn influence policy on development, tourism, and even climate change. Academic institutions and government institutions ought to be sensitive towards the hardly known narratives surrounding coastal communities and women. More research needs to be envisaged to understand the cultural and infrastructural barriers interfering with their interaction with the seas. The conclave was an attempt towards articulating thoughts and ideas about communities living on the coastline and about women who have contributed to Indian naval power and maritime influences historically and in the present. Scholars talking about the coastal communities in the thematic session 1 highlighted the significance of turning to the communities living currently or previously on the coastline of India. Professor Ranabir Chakravarti touched upon the influence of the sea on the coastal heritage of Bengal in the larger sense of today's Bangladesh and Tripura. He spoke about the fascinating examples of the influence of the delta on the culture. An example includes the music of S.D. Burman. Lieutenant Commander Kailash Mohanan spoke about the specificity of the communities of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and as island communities, an apt way of reminding his fellow scholars that no two communities are the same and that the expression coastal communities is not enough to talk about the unsung frame of communities that the session was dedicated to. Leora Pizarkar also discussed her work on the Bene Israeli community and their way of life. Dr. Andre Baptista presented an example of the way the East Indian community helped in excavating one of the areas that he was involved in. He drew attention to the immense possibility of educating the coastal communities and enlisting their support in archaeological and conservation projects. Denner D'Souza, who underlined the fact that with the homogenization of all cultures, the uniqueness as well as the diversity of the peoples living on the coasts are fast eroding. Women in the maritime history of other countries and locations are rare to find. Internationally speaking, the women one hears of is actually only one, Englishwoman Janet Taylor. Taylor is known for adjusting calculations to identify locations, realizing that the Earth is spheroidal, not spherical. She went on to teach navigation, wrote a lot of books, and developed a lot of nautical instruments. Women like the Swiss explorer Isabel Eberhardt, known for her exploration of Algeria, and closer home, Rani Abaca and the pepper queen Keladi Chenamma, are known for having the maritime vision for resisting the influence of the Portuguese. In the modern period of the Indian Navy, we hear of the women's wing of the Royal Indian Navy, the WRIN. In the session on women in the Indian maritime history, Lieutenant Commander Rajeshwari Kori, pilot Reshma Nilofer, and Sucheta Zada spoke about the experience of being at sea as women. The three spoke about their journey as professionals and left us with thoughts about what can we do to make our shipping and naval environments inclusive. Is gender parity so difficult to achieve in the 21st century? What can we learn from these women to make more women feel welcomed into the maritime domain? What can we do to inspire more women to join the maritime professions as entrepreneurs, pilots, and naval personnel in several capacities? Like all elements of nature, the sea does not discriminate in terms of gender. We need to take a closer look at the power structures created around the access to the sea and its resources. With the examples of Sumati Morarji and Captain Radhika Menon, one sees inspiring stories that need to multiply. Maritime trade routes have perhaps received the most attention within maritime history everywhere in the world. It is trade and commerce that has conventionally been understood to the primordial connection that human civilization has had with the oceanic expanses on the planet. Thus, while they are not an unsung frame per se, the retellings and the reinterpretations they facilitate definitely are. Commodore Ajay Agarwal's study of the house sailing between the Gulf of Kutch and the Persian Gulf reiterated the history of the sailing and trading connection between India and several coasts on the west. The Badalas and the Kharwas have been impacted as a result of the sanction by the United Nations on Iraq in the 1990s. The chain of events and their consequences are a lot more complex than this summary, but the key takeaway is that the larger geopolitical context have fostered networks and relationships that pan out in smaller narratives. The Khimji family received the title of Sheikh from the Sultan of Oman only a few years ago. Thus, we are yet to see how these transoceanic connections are yet to pan out in our times. Similarly, the appropriation of the historical maritime route by China indicates that what is past is not really past. The trade connections belonging to the past have consequences for claims in the present times. The new regionalism perspective presented by Commodore Sanjay D. Kunha focused on the way the power politics continues to unravel in the Indian Ocean region today. His analysis calls for a relook at the support being extended to the Project Mosam, a crucial initiative towards the display of India's historical presence in the Indian Ocean. While the previous papers talked about the movement of goods, the India-Africa connection highlighted by Aishwarya Devasthali was one instance of talking about movement of people. The presence of the Siddhis in the Indian soil can be appreciated from the instances of built heritage they have left behind. The fort of Janjira, the Kokri tombs, and the coins minted under the dominion of the Siddhis are examples of the exchange that has materialized over centuries, if not millennia. Thus, there is a need to study the archaeological evidence from the perspective of the communities that have moved across the ocean. We hope that this National Maritime Heritage Conclave has been able to do its small bit to shape the direction maritime history as a discipline in India must consider taking, so that it may include areas neglected previously. We shall continue to address many more unsung frames in our research projects and our upcoming initiatives. Thank you so much for your interest in maritime history and the work of Maritime History Society. With these thoughts, I now invite Vice Admiral A.R. Karve to deliver the valedictory address. Vice Admiral Karve was commissioned into the Indian Navy on 1st July 1980 and retired after 38 years of distinguished naval service in July 2018 as the Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief of Southern Naval Command. In a range of operational staff and command assignments, Admiral and anti-submarine warfare specialist had the honor to be both the commissioning crew of INS Vikrant and its commanding officer in the rank of captain. He also commanded patrol vessel INS Ajay, frigate INS Dunagiri, and destroyer INS Ranvijay, apart from later heading the sword arm of the Indian Navy as flag officer commanding Western Fleet in the rank of Rear Admiral. Admiral Karve has held prestigious positions in the flag ranks as steering Indian Naval Operations, Chief of Personnel and Chief of Staff at Western Naval Command. He has been closely associated as a paper presenter, supporter and trustee of the Maritime History Society at many occasions. He is an avid reader and takes keen interest in maritime strategy and heritage. He is pursuing a PhD from University of Mumbai and became Patron of MHS in April this year. Dear sir, let us hear from you now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I must say it is a great pleasure for me to be here to deliver this valedictory address. Over the last two days, Maritime History Society has provided an excellent platform to showcase the theme Exploring Unsung Frames in Indian Maritime History. It is a very apt, actually, subject in these times. It is heartening to see the participation of several people in different capacities as resource persons, as academic collaborators, as media partners, young researchers, and as facilitators, and as keen audiences from all walks of life, including the Navy and the student community in particular. The director wanted a program and a space that is not strictly academic, but at the same time, one that carries the rigor and spirit that truly objective academic contexts tend to have. The shift from the normal seminar format to the conclave format has definitely proved to be very successful, and I hope this continues in future as well. The entire MHS team certainly deserves many congratulations for the excellent show that they have put up. And I also convey to all the speakers my heartfelt thanks. The speakers have shone the light on things that are missing in our narrative about our maritime history. Without addressing these gaps, any attempt at challenging Western or other narratives about India's maritime past would be incomplete and leave us stripped of any credibility to talk about the omissions that other narratives are guilty of. Bengal and the Andaman and Nicobar are two coastal areas that are important in terms of the coastal communities, and that was part of the first part of this conclave. We saw that no two coasts are alike, and consequently, no two coastal communities have the same attitude to the sea. The Bene Israelis, the East Indians, and the Boys do not step into the same sea twice, to tweak a popular expression. Women are another frame that deserve attention in the narrative of the Indian maritime history. Women in history and women in the present was a good focus subject and shows that justice needs to be done to explore more stories, to undertake more research, to listen more on this subject. In a way, listening to women's voices would automatically cover the space for addressing voices of coastal communities. Doing the work by themselves. Seafaring is not patented by any gender, and as Sucheta Jadhav rightly pointed out, sea knows no gender. I hope we take this opportunity of listening to our panelists to work towards women's empowerment, to discover the ingenuity, skill, capacity, and attitudes that women could have been employing in matters related to the sea. Regarding connectivity in the Indian Ocean, I am eager to note the different trajectories taken by the sea routes in the Indian Ocean in the past. New knowledge on these transoceanic connections speak volumes about how inexhaustible this research is. The relationships that Kutch enjoyed with the Persian Gulf and the Mesopotamia and continues to have, India's relationship with East Pacific, China's relationship with the Indian Ocean, the India-Africa relationship as evidence in archaeological traces are areas of study which can have influence in significant ways in present-day geostrategic equations. Having addressed these unsung frames over 2 days, we need to think of a way forward. Valedictory should not just be about looking back, but also looking into the future. So after this first national conclave, Maritime History Society has a lot more to explore. I would like to draw attention to 3 particular areas. The first of these areas is underwater archaeology. Recently, Maritime History Society has collaborated with UNESCO New Delhi and the National Maritime Foundation to organize a workshop on safeguarding underwater cultural heritage. This is yet another unsung frame of exploring Indian maritime heritage. I have always emphasized that the H in Maritime History Society is not just history, but heritage as well. MHS is as much Maritime Heritage Society as it is Maritime History Society. Underwater exploration can throw up secrets that need to be discovered. Without these, the mission of Maritime History Society to use heritage to awaken maritime consciousness shall remain unfulfilled. I hope we stand committed to identifying key projects and at underwater archaeological sites near the coast to begin with, and then moving gradually deeper into the ocean to reconstruct Indian maritime heritage. This should also help in revisiting our maritime stories and rooting them in tangible heritage. MHS has the right intellectual resources to make this happen. The second area of research focus for Maritime History Society is an in-depth study of Indian nautical knowledge. Nautical knowledge is necessary to explore because it is the bedrock of maritime heritage. Sophisticated knowledge across all components of navigation must surely have existed. Seemingly simple things like winds, tides, currents, observation of celestial bodies, and so forth have today shape-shifted into complex disciplines such as oceanography with complex technological advancements. But it is fascinating to go back and imagine what kind of astronomy, astrology, cartography, shipbuilding knowledge, etc. was employed by sailors while getting from point A to point B in the past. This know-how is critical to understanding how they transported culture and commerce from point A to point B. We have the commemoration of the Bali Yatra every year. But what beyond that? The Pothis of Kutchi Mallams are a glorious record we can lay our hands on. We ought to have the imagination to use the same to dive deeper in time and discover the very basic technical aspects of sailing, because so far we have only seen the cultural and commercial consequences and manifestations of seafaring and the connectivity it enabled. The stone anchors and toy ships and depiction of boats found in the Harappan civilization are indications of how seafaring happened. Maritime History Society must now decode the mysteries of the navigation context of coasting and ocean sailing on the routes we have evidence for such as the Saurashtra to Oman route, the Malabar to the Red Sea route, the Khambat to Madagascar route, Tamil Nadu to Sumatra, and Kalinga to Bali, to name a few. This study of the art of safe passage is going to be a significant contributor with deep implications for scholars in both the sciences and the humanities. The third research focus of Maritime Society is the narrative of Indian maritime history itself. I call it a magnum opus that I hope will become an important point of reference to be cited for its credibility and authority. MHS has organized many programs over the years and undertaken so many initiatives on so many topics, which I feel can be used as resource material to pen a comprehensive volume to meet its primary objective, that is, narrating India's maritime history. Two books that specifically deal with the subject are K.M. Panikar's India and in the Indian Ocean and K. Sridharan's A Maritime History of India. After the time both were published, a lot of other material has emerged. Since its inception in 1978, MHS has acquired a new perspective, worked with a lot of scholars, published several books. It is now time to string it all together and bring out a comprehensive document on India's maritime history. These three focus areas will require considerable effort, resources in terms of manpower, workspace, books, field visits, equipment, travel, networking, and a lot more. Friends, let us partner with Maritime History Society to achieve its goals and raise the discourse about Indian maritime history in the country and the world. Let us support MHS to make the founder, late Vice Admiral MP Avati's vision a reality. Let us voice a strong support to the work of MHS so that as a society we stand benefited by a rising maritime awareness. That is the need of the hour. Do come forward to help support the various arms of Maritime History Society, such as Manthan, Setu, Sindhu, Sangralaya, and Megadu. Among themselves, these cover the museum space, research work, and public outreach. One can get involved in archiving. One can get involved as a volunteer. One can get associated as a collaborator in any capacity. With this first National Maritime Conclave, Maritime History Society has enlisted the support of an academic partner, the GMU, a professional partner, the Pilots Association, and a media partner. It is a welcome indication that professional institutions are more than willing to collaborate and join the movement to discover India's maritime past and history. I hope this movement continues with full vigor in future. I thank everyone for making this conclave a such success, and I thank you all for having me here to deliver this valedictory address.
Thank you, sir, for setting the expectations from the Maritime History Society after the conclave. As always, your words will guide us in our path to meet our immediate goals and long-term goals too. Let me now invite Commodore Oracle Johnson, Director MHS, for his closing remarks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Soni. This is not part of the schedule, but having seen the deliberations over 2 days from a distance perspective, I'm very glad, and I must share a secret that Team MHS has been at MHS premises, and I've been at the alternative location, and it's been such a great joy. I want to compliment particularly, there is a formal vote of thanks after this, but I want to compliment my senior team, Commodore Bakshi, Dr. Soni, and Mr. Matthew, the Assistant Director, and the complete support of Admiral Karve in the form of the initiatives that we have taken. And I'm mentioning this particularly because you can dare to dream, but to actually deliver, you need everyone. And it's not just a mention of the team. In closing, Admiral Karve did mention about partnering with MHS and a support to MHS. I am asking for the larger audience and people through you. There is much you can invest and build on. Invest in the things that we do. Our website is very user friendly. Go to our support page, open your wallets and your hearts and contribute liberally. We have surprises coming up. We have courses coming up. We have internships coming up. We have a lot of things come up. But we can't do it alone. We need you. So come together, and we wouldn't have been able to do this last 2 days without support of almost 65 to 70 people I was writing, and all of them are not going to be mentioned in the vote of thanks. And that is what has made this possible. We need you. And with that, I'm going to hand over back to the conclave coordinator who's been doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Dr. Soni, and continuing the proceeding and allowing me to disrupt in between as it was needed. Thank you, and Shano Varun, Jai Hind to all the audience.
Thanks to you, sir, for letting us do this and for your guidance. Let me now call upon Commodore Vikram Bakshi, Additional Director, Maritime History Society, to deliver the vote of thanks. Commodore Vikram Bakshi, winner of Nausena Medal, was commissioned into the Indian Navy on 1st July 1989. An alumnus of the National Defence Academy and DSSC Wellington, the officer joined the Indian Navy submarine arm in 1991. He is a communication specialist and has served in various capacities on conventional diesel-electric submarines. He commanded INS Shankush, during which time the submarine was awarded the Chief of the Naval Staff Unit citation. For exceptional devotion to duty, he was conferred with a Nausena Medal in 2008. He also commanded the Indian naval ship Rajput before being appointed as the Command Submarine Officer at the Western Naval Command. Prior to being appointed as the Additional Director of MHS in July 2019, the officer was the Commodore of the Yard at Naval Dockyard, Mumbai. So please come and deliver your vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Soni. Respected Patron Admiral Abhay Karve, flag officers, serving and retired senior officers, and other conclave attendees, a very good afternoon. As all good things come to an end, so does this maiden attempt of the Maritime History Society at conducting a National Maritime Heritage Conclave, a graduation from the earlier annual seminar held at this time of the year. In March, when we faced the lockdown, who could have thought that we would evolve the way we have, especially with our meager resources? It required self-belief, foresight, and abundance of support from each and every corner. The society, under the director's dynamic leadership, transformed and adapted itself to maintain connect using digital platforms, starting with the launch of its website in May, whilst commemorating our Founders' Day. Without dwelling more into our exertions and for those who are present but not conversant with the working of the society, I would like to inform that it is the trustees and the governing body members who decide well before the path the society is to tread in the following year, and thereafter it is kept on track by our academic council, which oversees our work every quarter. In short, the society functions smoothly through prior proper planning and support, which keeps it firmly on track to achieving its charted goals, mission objectives, and long-term perspective. As is evident, the supporters to the society's cause, which is to nurture historical research and showcase our maritime heritage, are many, and I have been given the privilege to express a sincere and humble gratitude to all these people. I have tried to cover most of our well-wishers. Just in case I do miss out on someone, I would like to apologize in advance. I begin with thanking our Chief Patron, the Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Vice Admiral Ajit Kumar, who has supported our endeavors to the hilt, permitting the society the autonomy it requires to grow and alleviating our lack of resources through generous grants. I want to thank our patron, Vice Admiral Karve, for being a mentor and encouraging the intellectual efforts of the society despite his busy schedule as a member of the Armed Forces Tribunal Regional Bench Lucknow, and for delivering the incisive, astute, and thoughtful valedictory speech. Our sincere gratitude to Chairman MHS and Chief of Staff, Western Naval Command, Vice Admiral R.V. Pandit, for graciously accepting our request to deliver the inaugural address and consistently supporting us. Many thanks to Vice Chairman Rear Admiral Venam Srinivas, Flag Officer Maharashtra area, for providing advice and inspiring us for the conduct of this conclave despite the lockdown, and sparing his valuable time to announce the prize winner of the Admiral J.G. Nadkarni Memorial Essay Competition in the Indian Navy category during this conclave. Special thanks to Admiral R.J. Nadkarni for painstakingly judging each of the submissions we received for the Admiral J.G. Nadkarni Memorial Essay Competition and helping us identify the winners in the keenly contested event. We sincerely appreciate Professor Vasant Shende, a renowned archaeologist and Director General of National Maritime Heritage Complex, Lothal, for sparing his valuable time and agreeing to be the chief guest and delivering the keynote address. I want to express our gratitude to Dr. Shanta Kumar, Director and Vice Chancellor at GNMU and Gujarat Maritime University, for collaborating with MHS as an academic partner for the conduct of this conclave and for his insightful thematic talk, which gave it a great start. And Dr. Geeta Kasturi, a renowned practicing lawyer, member of the Managing Committee of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai, and legal panel member of Government Mint and Children's Film Society of India, for releasing the Sagara song, as well as Captain Gajanan Karanjikar, President, All India Maritime Pilot Association, for partnering with MHS for this conclave and announcing the prize winner for the Admiral J.G. Nadkarni Memorial Essay Competition in the student category. For the lively discussions, I would like to thank the participating resource personality Dr. Radhika Station, Professor Ranvi Chakravarti, Professor Lakshmi Subramaniam, Ms. Leora Vizakar, Ms. Sucheta Jadhav, Ms. Reshma Delopar, Lieutenant Commander Rajeshwari Kori, Commodores Ajay Agarwal and Sanjay Dikuna for their talks and papers. A big thank you to all the trustees and the naval community for supporting the conclave and our cause. I'm certain that each one of us stood to gain from the conclave, for it is the famous that most of us are aware of, but addressing the unsung people connected with the maritime medium is what we thought would be a welcome change. And I trust we got several takeaways from the addresses, conversations, and discussions during the last 2 days. There are also some unsung frames to this conclave who worked hard to ensure its success. The Sagara song was conceived and composed by our director, Commodore Oracle Johnson. The time-lapse doodle artist is a very dear friend of MHS, Mr. Prathamesh Sawant. The song was sung by Ms. Riddhi Joshi, and its music was composed and produced by Sri David Centuri. The technical support came from Sri Ravi Prakash, Inad Nayak, and Samuel Thomas. Last but not the least, I wish to congratulate and thank the NHS team who have conceived a very apt theme for its maiden national conclave and work towards throwing more light on the unsung aspects of maritime customs and culture via this medium. In the words of our director, may many more of us be ignited with passions for things maritime, as life began at sea, and that is where we all shall end like a drop that goes back to the ocean. Salvation or moksha is finally going back to the ocean. Many thanks to you all for being here. Wishing you a great afternoon and pleasant memories. Goodbye and Godspeed.
And the vote of thanks shall be incomplete if we do not thank you, Commodore Vikram Bakshi, for thanking everyone. Thank you, sir, for all your warm support in the planning of this conclave, for your leadership on the premises as the team was running all over the place in the absence of the director. Thank you so much. With that, allow me to wish you a good afternoon and a good day. Do keep supporting our programs and initiatives. Our sustainability campaign has been highlighted by the director and the patron. Do help us to meet our objective of using heritage to awaken maritime consciousness. Let us keep in touch via our website and the various social networks, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now LinkedIn too. Thank you to the esteemed audience for pouring in warm wishes, even as Commodore Vikram Bakshi was bringing the final session to a close with his vote of thanks. Thank you once again and see you soon.